Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Good morning. This is Newsline. I'm Sonali Vanigapadage. Now, the local government election is just around the corner. With elections comes a whole host of drama for the people. To discuss all this and more, we have with us the Executive Director of CAFE, the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election, which is an election monitoring body in Sri Lanka. Mr. Tena Coon, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you. Now, yesterday saw the accepting of nominations for the February 10th election concluding. Now, this hasn't been without its drama. We saw a lot of rejections, especially based on the most hilarious of grounds. For example, we saw nominations being rejected as a result of signatures not being placed, as a result of the gender not being mentioned. I mean, if a form can't be filled, then, I mean, can the general public expect anything more?
Yeah, this is unbelievable stuff, as we saw that Podujana Peramuna nominations, 6 nominations were rejected at the first phase, and then yesterday we saw 5 local councils, 5 nominations for the local councils were rejected, especially 4 out of them are coming from the Northern Peninsula. It's unbelievable stuff, as some mention this is a very small errors, but here not putting down the signature of the General Secretary is a major issue. If you cannot fill the whole thing, so it's a problem. So in some nominations rejected, for example, Badul Municipal Council, there was no adequate number of candidates for that matter. For Mayangane, it was no female candidate, adequate number of female candidates. So even though some people try to portray this as a small errors by a way, if you are looking for the general election law, basically without these signatures, names, numbers, you cannot all go for election. So it's a unbelievable, you know. I think it's basically the negligence. There are experts to do this, the clerical work. You have to check it, double check, cross check it. There are lawyers to do that. There are organizers, party organizers. There are candidates who are capable of doing that. For example, in Panadura Municipal Council, there were 3 lawyers contesting for that particular local council, but still their nominations got rejected. This is the first time 11 nominations from a single political party get rejected, and all the municipal councils, urban councils and the Pradesh Sabhas get rejected. So with that, I mean, there were some other parties, especially the SLFP nominations were rejected in 2 local councils last time. But when, I mean, smaller parties, no one is caring about too much on that. But here, Muslim Congress get rejected at Veligama Pradesh Sabha yesterday. Some individuals also, for so smaller votes, I mean, if one particular candidate is having an issue with his name and all that, it was rejected. So number of cases in that caliber also happened. But basically, rejection of nomination papers is the key when you are looking for the yesterday's issues.
Right. Now, the franchise, exercising of the franchise is of paramount importance, and it's one of the hallmarks of democracy. However, of late, we've been seeing a lot of apathy, a lot of disillusionment among the general public. How important is it for the general public of Sri Lanka to exercise their franchise at the upcoming elections?
So, I mean, January 8th, the unbelievable number of people went to the polling stations. Early morning, by this time of the day, we saw people are going on, and people were going there enthusiastically. You know, the people show that there are commitment to change things with the use of the ballot. So then there's a huge hope on reforms and the anti-corruption issues for that matter, cleaning up the government and all that. So that, I mean, when you going back and think what exactly happened during the last 3 years, the reformist agenda has been shaken, and the hopes of the people people is not lived up to the expectation, and the people who did the corruption and the other issues were not, the issues related to the corruption was not well addressed for that matter, and the same political culture is still staining, and we saw that so much of politicians running here and they are changing their alliance parties and all that would happen. So this is not what exactly people looked for. There's a frustration. In the other hand, cost of living, now the Christmas season is on, the people are looking for their loved ones to go vacations and all that. People are in a sense are really happy with the environment, basic environment. In the other hand, for the first time in Sri Lankan history, there's a huge division between the three main political parties. The Sinhala main Colombo-based political parties here. The SLP is divided, the UNP is not performing really well, especially in the Sinhala Buddhist areas, and in the northern part, the whole northern party's nominations are prepared by Rishad Badudin himself. So there's a huge frustration among the main political parties, even though, and we saw that the Maitri Gunaratna's political party coming strongly and filing something like 70 for 70 local councils. So UNP itself, in a sense, has divided into two. So basically, there's huge drama is taking place. In the other hand, when there's a huge hope and everyone was looking for the Podujana Peramuna and all that. So that the momentum has, generally creeping out. So the issues related to Vimal Veeravansha's political party, Dinesh Gunawardena is not happy, Uday Gampampilla, we haven't seen him for a while. So all these issues come into one particular act. In the other hand, the last 2 days of the nominations, each and every day, the final day of the nominations is known for election law violations and violence. I mean, to be fair, yesterday the police took control of everything, and even though when we were making some complaints of there are vehicle parades and all that, but here whenever we made a complaint or the general public made a complaint, the police took actions. I mean, there was no biasness on this. So that is a good part of that. So with this all developments, I think the next 50 days will be very crucial, and let's hope that the free and fair elections exercises can be happen.
Right. Now, when we talk about the local government election, we're talking not mainly on policy, but of grassroots level politics. We're talking about who's going to take the garbage, things like that. So how do you think the local government elected representatives should go about acting in an organized manner? Because we see that in a lot of areas where local government bodies need to come together, there is no proper mechanism. For example, the recent dengue crisis that we went through, people were just passing the buck and no one was willing to take responsibility. Definitely. As a result of which, Sri Lanka went through so much of crisis. There were deaths reported island-wide. So this is shocking. But there are responsible authorities.
Sonali, from the birth to death, local councils are the most closest entity with the public representation down there to the people. So there's a huge importance of that. And that's why we are having a system. This is the system worldwide. The local councils are uninterrupted with the public representation down there. Without public representation, I think the whole exercise or the real meaning of the local councils will not take place. So we are having a lack of that. For 60 years in Pudukkottai and Maritime Pattu, there was no local elections. And for Vaticlo, for 9 local councils, almost 4 years we didn't have elections. Jaffna, same. Vaunia Municipal Council, we are having the same story. Then when it comes to the other local councils, for almost 3 years we didn't have the local councils down there. So there's a huge issue. And the other hand, if you look into the greater cities, how they were built and the local councils are operating in a fair manner, lots of professionals are coming. The people who are concerned for their communities are coming in. The enterprises, the farmers, the fishermen, the peoples who are known the realities, ground realities, and peoples who know their requirements at the grassroots comes into the local councils. But here, for last 2-3 decades, we didn't see it in Sri Lanka. The people who's doing business, the people who's doing contracts came in, the relatives of the politicians at the local levels, provincial levels came into this system. And the only thing what they looked for is that how to get elevated to the provincial councils or the parliament for that matter. Sure. They didn't took care of the people. But here, now we are having a system, the vote system is totally different. The people knows their candidates, of course. They associate with them, and it will be very hard to the people who is distant from their villages or the town for that matter will not get elected. So we could have a new hope. This is a new system. We campaigned for almost 2 decades now. We are finally having the system with some unbelievable changes, like the increased number of the local council members. So that's, there are pluses and minuses, but here somewhere we have to start.
Right. Now, I remember, Mr. Tena Coon, the March 12th declaration for which you yourself were an essential part of, where you campaigned for clean candidates, right? A major issue that Sri Lanka faces is its quality of parliamentarians or elected officials.
Definitely, yes.
How do we go about fixing this issue?
At the very beginning, as the Election Commission announced the local councils, we were urging all the political parties to look for the clean candidates. Clean candidates is the key, because the clean candidates can win or make it or lose it for the political parties. But it is very unfortunate that all 3 main political parties, the UNP, SLFP and Podujana Peramuna, all 3 political parties having corrupt people, the people who are closely associated with the underworld, and the people who are doing anti-social activities, drug dealers, and all of them had got nominations to some extent. But when we were putting pressure, some of these candidates, their nominations were rejected at the last moment. But it is not up to the expectation. There are, especially what we worried about is that the people who was very closely associated, or the kingpins of the underworld is contesting this election.
Right. We're in conversation with Mr. Tena Coon. We're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back. If you're just joining us, this is Newsline. We're in conversation with Mr. Tena Coon, the Executive Director of CAFE, the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. Mr. Tena Coon, bribery and corruption are 2 of society's biggest cancers in Sri Lanka. Now, yesterday we had the Director General of the CIABOC, Mr. Sarat Jayaman, President's Council, on this very show. And he pointed out the weaknesses and the challenges of combating bribery and corruption, as well as their plan forward. Now, recently you attended the Global Forum on Asset Recovery in Washington, D.C., where the tracking down of assets siphoned off from Sri Lanka also came under discussion. Tell us how that went.
No, unbelievable amount of money has taken out from Sri Lanka with different projects and all that during the last decade or so. And everyone knows this story. And there are global attempt to recover the money which was siphoned out of these very corrupt Arab countries like Tunisia, Nigeria, and then Ukraine, Sri Lanka, and all these countries were focus countries on that. I mean, Sri Lanka became a focus country just because of, I mean, during the anti-corruption summit which happened in London, the president was one of the chief invitees down there, and he made a request that Sri Lanka is having a prime commitment to asset recovery, and we want to find out where our money is. So with that thing, definitely Sri Lanka made it a focal point, and the focus country for that matter. And Sri Lankan delegation was a bit heavy. Some 14 people representing the state sector came on, including Mr. Sarat Jaman, the Siabogra DG, and the Attorney General was down there. The key investigators were down there, and we were representing the civil society. I mean, but here, once again in January 8th, the country, the president, prime minister made it very clear that we want to get our money back to Sri Lanka. But the investigation process, or the taking legal actions on these issues related to the corruption was not adequate. Only one case was finalized, and there are something like 32 cases ongoing, and there are 48 cases still pending at the Aegis department and so on. So it is not happening on the face what we are looking for. And the other hand, this is something very time consuming. For example, in Nigeria, it took almost 17 years to get the money back which was taken out by its leader, the oil money of Nigeria. And it was down there in Switzerland, and they have tracked it. There are ways and means of tracking money where the money has stolen, or if they are dumping in some other banks or some other assets worldwide.
Yeah, but Sri Lanka's laws aren't geared yet to cover this. That
is exactly, Sonali, the issue here. I mean, one thing we demanded at the very beginning is that make adequate laws. We don't have adequate laws for that matter. When we are fighting about corruption, at least the countries should amend their laws in line with the UN Anti-Corruption Convention. So it has not happened. The demand is coming for almost 3 years now. At the very beginning, we draft some particular statements that saying, I mean, these laws should be amended. And we are having the anti-corruption or money laundering laws which is not up to the standards, I'll say. So this issue is always down there. I mean, in the other hand, there's a science of investigations on these to this money. The foreign governments always helps these sort of exercises. And the other hand, political relationships and the political willingness is the key if you are looking for that asset recovery. So all these technical issues were addressed. In the other hand, the Sri Lankan delegation, the state delegation, had bilateral talks with something like 30 countries. So I think they will have a better understanding and better experience to deal with these issues. And for in the other hand, in the civil society, we know that where the money is, and the information the other countries is having, the investigators are having, is everyone knows where is the money now. But we don't have a system to get the money back into the Sri Lanka, most important part when you are fighting against corruption.
Mr. Tena Coon, the face of crime has now changed. Now we're talking about white-collar crime, where a lot of technical points are there. So the general public doesn't really understand the implications of this. You need technical experts. You need forensic investigations.
That's the key, yes.
Right? Now, taking it back to the public sector, the public service. Most of the time we hear about how government sector organizations are understaffed, or that the staff is lackadaisical. or that the staff is not proactive. This is a complaint that we keep hearing from across the country in all sorts of government organizations. But the thing is, there are line ministers for each of these organizations. So if they have been put into parliament to handle whatever area, and if that's not being done, then what does the voter have to do?
Here we are going for the local elections.
Sure.
Right. In general, here the local authorities have unbelievable amount of autonomy for that matter. They can make their decisions on the local councils. So they are. They know their community's problems and all that. The people talk to them. They are having interaction better than the parliamentarians to the ground. So with that thing, I mean, if you can elect a proper educated, and in the other hand a person who can come up with the alternative for that matter, will do a better job for you. So getting that sort of a person for the local councils is the key if you are looking for the real representation. But here, when you look into the other purposes, I mean the local provincial council or the parliamentary, it's a mess. And this particular issue was not well addressed, and the scientific way of dividing the ministries is always made more questions than answers. And it has become, I mean, it was not done scientifically, and we have to address this issue. But here, for last 2 years, what we saw is that from the president's part, from the prime minister's part, they try to address their inner party political issues than going into solving the real problems of the people.
So are you saying that the politicians don't care about the people?
Yeah, that's one of the that's what we feel from their actions, right? So for last 6 months, everyone was talking about party politics, not on the economy, not on the development aspect, and we were talking about corruption continuously. So we were labeling the Mahinda Rajapaksa regime as one of the corrupt, but here, if you look into the highways, if you look into the Lanka for that matter, you can name them power, energy sectors, the whole deal after deal is coming on. So it was the focal point is that, I mean, corruption and party politics. Besides these two issues, I mean, is the real development-oriented thinking has taken place. Just think of the crisis what we are having with the asbestos at the moment, the tea sector. I mean, here you cannot work independently. You are not living in an isolated world. So you should realize the global realities. This is something we are lacking at the moment.
Right. Getting back to the public service, it's important that we have a geared public service to tackle the issues faced by the citizens of the country.
We are having one of the biggest public sector when it comes to the ratio of the number of population.
Are they effectively utilized?
So this is the issue. The effectiveness of the public service is becoming a question mark on daily basis. Why I am saying is that, I mean, the politicians are looking for their votes by giving the O-level or the A-level pass people, the graduates, the the state sector jobs, and each and every time the state sector getting bigger and bigger. Number of public services are getting bigger and bigger when you are comparing to the ratio. So this is the effectiveness we don't see. So if you walk into a public government office, you see there's so much of people who's not doing anything but walking and talking here and there. In the public sector, in the government, in private sector, in the same thing, the same thing is done by something like 2-3 computers plus 2-3 the clerks for that matter.
So this is why people called on professionals in the private sector to get into politics. However, that happened, but still we don't see any effective changes.
There are 2-3 different issues here. The people who the people who represent the private sector came into the politics and joined the governments in various capacities. We have seen that they are going back to the private sector within no time with the frustration. Their story is unbelievable in some cases. So the real issue here is that we are having a system so corrupt, whatever the people coming on is, played around by the system itself and going and refusing back. And they are going for their destinies. We saw Mr. Jayantha Dhanapala coming on. We saw the people of different calibers coming on. We saw some of the key people, pioneered people from the private sector coming on. Internationally renowned people coming on. And where are they now? They have gone back with the frustration. So we don't have a system to absorb the real creative people. In the other hand, each and every time, whenever you are having a crisis or a problem or an issue for that matter, we are looking for the foreign expertise on this. Elections and everything, we are looking for the foreign experts. It is not the case some 3-4 decades back. We had all these expertise. We are having all the expertise here. Sri Lankans are producing more experts on various financial field, administration field, agriculture and so on.
But they all
goes back overseas. So they are the ones who are serving the other countries, but we are having some sort of a mentality, getting the foreigners into the service. I mean, here, just think of a bridge. Building a bridge. I mean, it was done in Sri Lanka itself by the government factory down there in Koluna some 5 decades ago. The universities were built. Everything was built here itself in Sri Lanka. But here, even for building a bridge or something like that, the foreign experts are called here. So Chinese experts are coming here. So this is becoming a major issue, huge issue when it comes to the corruption. In the other hand, underestimating the local, the knowledge here, and it makes more issues than questions than answers.
Okay, my final question to you, Mr. Tena Coon, is given the fact that Sri Lanka will be going into local government elections in a couple of weeks from now, how important is it for the general public of Sri Lanka to cast their vote, to exercise their franchise, despite the fact that most may be frustrated with the current situation in the country? How important is it for people to have hope and faith in the system and to cast their vote?
Sonali, we should understand the general pattern, the voting pattern here. I mean, if it is a national elections like a presidential election or a parliamentary election, we can expect something like 75 to 80% voter turnout. But for the local councils, it's basically somewhere around 55 to 60. But the significant on the upcoming elections is that, I mean, reintroduction of the vote system will take more voters to the polling station for sure, because they know their relatives are contesting, their known people are contesting, the people who can keep a trust on is contesting. So in that sense, I think that more and more people definitely will go to the polling stations. In the other hand, we are having a chance to elect a known person for the vote. Someone who is not corrupt, someone who is creative, someone who is capable to deliver things for their communities. I think with that hope, definitely more and more people will go into the polling station, and that's something we should encourage continuously.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kirti Tena Coon, Executive Director of the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. Have a fantastic weekend ahead and a Merry Christmas.